Welcome to video 2 of the 95-inch upgrade. This video most people aren't probably going to want to watch. This is for my buddy Rich, who emailed me some questions, and I'm going to answer your questions. They may be beneficial to other people, probably not. This is more for entertainment, I guess, but no, I'll try to make it serious. So Rich had asked me why I'm doing this project, why do it yourself and why not pay somebody else. Well, I think that, for some people it's kind of obvious. I like to know how things tick, what makes them work. I want to see how things come apart. I want to know when I'm on a ride, if something breaks, how to fix it. And the other thing is I just don't want to pay somebody $1,000, $2,000 to do this. I actually enjoy it and I'm learning it. So there you go, Rich. I'll help you out on your bike if you need it. One of his other questions was, what's underneath the towel? All right, so when you tear something like this apart, you really want to keep it covered. You don't want anything falling down inside your cranks and inside your bores and getting down into this engine. And it's very difficult. There's no way I'll be able to show you in this video. But about right here, all the way down in the engine, there's a wall. If something falls down inside of here, I can't get it out. I would have to unbolt this case, tip the motor upside down, shake it to get it out, depending on what it is, if you can get it out. If you can't, you've got to disconnect your drive chain, your primary, everything on the other side, pull this thing out. Well, you got to do that anyways, and then separate the case into two halves, and you've got a much, much bigger project on your hand at that point in time. So it's just paramount to not let anything get down inside of this. Not only that, but when you start it up, you want to keep the contaminants to a minimum. Which leads me to another one of his questions was, why was I grinding inside of this case with open bearings? So I really wasn't. I had pulled everything apart before I shot video 1, but what I did was shoved little rags, torn up rags inside the bearings, ragged the crankshaft bearing off so you couldn't see anything. I don't know if I can show you these, but there's a lot of little holes up inside of here, and you can't get those metal pieces in any of that. So it all had to be, I ragged it, solvent wiped it, got the housing clean and dry, and then I duct taped it. And then I grind, and then I pull it all out, clean it, measure it, and then I do it all over again. So it was a whole night process just to get down 5/1000ths of an inch. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to grind, especially with your brand new bearings. So that's why I keep this thing covered. I keep all of the parts, even the old parts, covered. The new parts especially, because this is the stuff that's going back inside of the motor. Rich wanted to know why I opened up my tools and didn't show anybody what the tools look like. So here you go. Before the project begins, on the primary side where the cams come out, I bought this kit, again, George's Garage, guys, if you need tools. I bought this kit first. This dial indicator, this goes around to your crankshaft. This bolts up to your primary side. You turn your motor and you look for movement in that gauge, which measures really, really subtle movements. If you're at 3/1000ths of an inch or more, yeah, you don't want to be putting this kit in, and you most likely have a bigger problem on your hands. You're talking about pulling the engine out and splitting that case and putting new bearings in. Mine measured out at about, I can't remember, but it was half. It was half of what it was supposed to be. It wasn't out 3/1000ths of an inch. Heck, even if that gauge is off 50%, I'm still good. So that one was the first tool I started with. The second one was the inner cam bearings. So the bearings that are inside that I just showed you inside the housing, there's two little bearings on the top. Those had to be extracted and pulled out. Now I got a hammer puller that I could have used to pull it out, but I had read that sometimes the needles fall back inside and getting them out is bear. So I just decided to invest in this tool that makes it very, very simple. You push this insert in. There's a little rod inside of here. You can see that other end, but you push that in. It makes this tool spread out. It's tapered. It's got a groove. It grabs the bearing. Put this collar on the back side, this nut and this washer. You tighten it up, and it pulls the bearing right out. Piece of cake. Worked really, really well. When I first bought that tool, it wouldn't fit inside my bearing, but I used some channel locks, pliers, and just squeezed it in a little bit so it would fit inside the bearing. Once those bearings were out, this was the next tool. This is an insert tool to put the new bearings back in. This was awesome. So again, you just put your bearing on this little insert, use this rod, thread it into the block. This plate, this whole plate gets attached to the side of your primary, and all you do is run this rod in, and this insert pushes them in to the exact location where they need to be. Well worth the money. Wouldn't even imagine doing it any other way. Today, this was another tool that I used. It's black, so I don't know if it's showing up real well. This was for pulling the outer cam bearings out. Now that your outer cam bearings, I'm going to show you this. These are outer cam bearings. The bearings are still on the cams. They were pressed inside this housing. So they've got to get pressed out. New ones got to get pressed back in. So this tool, or this portion of the tool, was used to push it out because it goes over the shafts and pushes right on the bearing races. So it really minimizes the load on your cam plate. And then when it's time to put the bearings back in, you use this plate underneath your cam plate, and you can't see it, but it's got a lot of notches and cutouts, and that's to accommodate some of the features that are on the cam plate. And then what I used was this tool here to push down on my cam plate, so I wasn't pushing directly on the end of the cams with the hydraulic press. Definitely recommend a hydraulic press. I don't think you got enough horsepower with an arbor press, and I definitely wouldn't hammer them. So again, my priority with this project was to get rid of the cam chain tensioners. So that's what the setup looks like. That's what's getting eliminated. All those chain links, all those pins, cam shoes, tensioners, springs, snap rings, all of that gets eliminated. So this is what the new setup looks like. This is a gear-driven cam. So rather than having the chain tied around the gears to drive it, these two gears will be tied to the crankshaft and will be directly driven. I'm really excited I understand there's going to be a little bit more whine and noise when the motor starts, but I think it's worth it for performance and getting rid of those 400 and some odd parts. I'm waiting for one more tool to come in, so my next step is to install my pistons and my jugs and start working on the heads and the rest of this stuff. But these little C-clips here, so my intention is to put one in the piston and then put the roll pins into the connecting shafts, but I really don't want to do very much of that work over the engine, because I don't want those C-clips falling down inside of there. And I know I could put in rags and some tape and all of that stuff, but there's a tool. Yep, you know the garage, George's Garage, he sells a tool that makes installing and removing those C-clips a breeze. So I just decided it's worth the money to do this as clean as far as I'm at. I want to